Well, hello and welcome to Working Lunch. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the SLO Chamber of Commerce. And when we started this series, we had no idea if it would last more than a few weeks. But I'm so glad to welcome you to our 35th interview this afternoon. Since its inception, the goal of Working Lunch has been to bring you the conversation with key community leaders and foster a sense of community connection in these isolating times. So for our first interview of 2021, I'm so excited to be sitting down with the powerhouse behind Restorative Partners, Sister Theresa Harpin. Although she founded Restorative Partners in 2011, Sister Theresa has been involved in restorative justice projects in SLO County since the early 2000s through the Newman Center at Cal Poly and the inaugural Get on the Bus program. With a goal of reducing violence and lowering recidivism, Restorative Partners provides a continuum of care for those impacted by crime in our community, including victims, offenders, and the community at large. The approach incorporates trauma-informed care, addresses responsibility and accountability, and offers accompaniment through reentry mentorship for those released from the San Luis Obispo County Juvenile Hall, Jail, Honor Farm, and State Prison. They also provide clean and sober living homes for men and women, as well as own and operate a home for women who are ready to reunite with their children and move forward with their lives. I'm so looking forward to learning more about Sister Theresa, what drew her to restorative justice, ways that Restorative Partners has stepped up to serve our community during COVID. So thank you so much for all of you being here. Sister Theresa, welcome. Thank you for your time.
It's wonderful to be with you and everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, even though it kind of feels a little bit like a continuation for the first 7 or 8 days here, but it's 2021, got to put the positivity.
Right.
So as our first question, as we always do, as we sit down to lunch, first and foremost, where are you zooming in from today?
Well, I'm working from home today, and I am sitting at my dining room table adjacent to the kitchen. And why is that significant? Because as you learn to know a little bit more about who I am and my religious congregation, the Sisters of St. Joseph, our community was founded around the kitchen table. So to me, this is getting to the root of the matter. And I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of all the amazing people that have gone before me in my own little kitchen and dining room table.
I love that. That works well for me, especially as from my Italian background. That's our whole family operates around the kitchen table. So you start off right there, which is a great point that I'd love to get to know a little bit about. So can you tell us what first drew you to a life in the church?
Sure. Of course, my life has been a gift, first and foremost. And what drew me to become a vowed woman religious is, that feeling deep inside. Perhaps, Jim, you knew that when you chose the person you're married with, okay? Is like, this feels like home. I can sit back with this person, put my feet up on the ottoman and say, I'm in who I am in my own skin. Well, through prayer and reflection and asking others to search with me what I think God wanted me to do, I came home to myself in thinking about being a sister of St. Joseph. I met us and in high school in San Diego at the Academy of Our Lady of Peace. And what I noticed was joy, friendship. This great friendship, not only with each other, but with God. There was something that was real about their relationship. It wasn't like this holier than thou position. It was, we're in company with the one who created us. And everyone is our dear neighbor. We speak about that in our documents, being a dear neighbor. And that just fascinated me to look with that lens on the world.
Well, it's such a beautiful statement, and I love the feeling behind it. So looking at, after you got through, joining the order, what was your first posting like? Where did this role kind of take you?
Well, it was to a place that I had already dreamt about, literally in my dreams, but I did not know it would be affirmed by my leadership and community. I wanted to go into the inner city of Los Angeles. And I had a deep desire to learn from people that were suffering, people that were challenged by their economic situation. I wanted to be in a community of color and diversity. And so I was sent to Transfiguration Church, South Central LA, where I served as the worship coordinator and adult education director. I love the people. I grew as a person. I was stretched as an educator, and I reveled in being a musician there. Can you imagine any better music? It was soulful, wonderful.
It's, and having spent obviously a great deal of time in that area, I definitely, that those experiences, I'm sure had an incredible effect on your understanding and kind of what it did for your later life. Was there more, was that where you were stationed the whole time, or were there other parts of Los
No,
Angeles?
like us sisters, we get sent to a variety of settings. That was my first. And then after that, I went back up to our college and did some years in campus ministry at Mount St. Mary's University. Again, I fall in love with every mission I've been in, because wherever there are people, how could you help but not fall in love, And then from there, I spent a year of study in music and liturgy, but then I went out to Hacienda Heights and did 5 years there as now a very large parish, 6,000 families, was the director of adult education, worship, musicians there. And again, I loved it. And I was groomed by a maverick pastor, Jim Aloysius O'Callahan, very Irish, but a maverick known all over Los Angeles. And he trained me up in such a way, empowered me as a woman and as a leader, that my next mission was within reach. Believe it or not, in 1989, my community was asked to think about sending me out to Corona, California, because the Bishop of San Bernardino had no priest to start a Catholic church out there. And so they said, Sister Theresa, we think you can do it, go. And I went through the normal interview process. At that time, there's no place to live. I lived with the Franciscans, and literally I drove out with my car, packed, went and lived with a different community, and started the church out of people's homes in their living room. And then found a place we could gather as a whole community. And in 6 years, 5-6 years, I was there 89 to 1995. We got 14 acres of land. I built 2 buildings. We got all the ministries up and running. I had to bring in the infrastructure for that building, the water, the electricity, the propane tanks, build the roads, everything. It was quite a collaborative, exciting project. And in 1995, I was a bit tired and just about ready to celebrate my 25th anniversary as a sister. And so I got a sabbatical.
Wow. In thinking about that time in the church, I'm not sure there would have been a lot of people that the church would have transferred the power to a sister to do these things. So amazing to hear that you were given that, and that you took it and were able to run and did such an amazing job with it. That's incredible.
Well, after I left, another woman took my place, and she was there almost twice as long as I was. So all of which a woman is capable of is what our documents say as a sister of St. Joseph. And I figure if I've been invited, then the grace of there is to deliver. And so I respond with enthusiastic yes.
That's amazing and truly inspiring. Well, so that leads you into a sabbatical. How on earth did you end up here in San Luis Obispo?
Well, after I spent a good half a year in the Middle East doing archaeological digs and studying scripture, I came back refreshed, spent time in retreat, and I got a call from Bishop Sylvester Ryan, who was the Bishop of Monterey. And he said, Sister, I need you. Come to San Luis Obispo and take over the Newman Catholic Center. So my community and I talked about it, and they said, yes, go. So I came, And I was with the Newman Center, loved working with campus ministry and our college students again, as I did at Mount St. Mary's, now I was doing it at Cal Poly in Cuesta. And I loved it. It was great. I stayed there till 2003. And then I was faced with a challenging personal episode with breast cancer. So I had to sit back and say, okay, getting healthy and well is now the priority. So put that on your front burner and deal with that. And I had wonderful doctors here. I stayed locally. I can't tell you enough. I mean, my surgeon, Dr. Howard Hayashi, saved my life. And I am forever grateful for that. And besides that, he had great bedside manners and made me laugh. And through all of that, I got healed. I really felt a resurgence of my life. And then I put the question to God again. Okay, what's next? And where do you want me to go? I had resigned from Newman Center to get well. And then pretty soon, one of our own sisters had started Get on the Bus in the statewide program. And she said, we haven't done it at men's prisons yet. And I said, well, I can help you at CMC. I don't know what you're talking about, but we'll figure it out. And I'll never forget my first day at CMC to meet with the publicity person. And it was like we went to the front desk on the east side and the guard said, what do you want? And why are you here? Kind of gruffly, And we told them, and the next thing out of their mouth was, that's a terrible idea. Why would you ever want to bring children here to visit? And I said, because every child, if appropriate, needs to have time with their mom or their dad. And so we got on the bus, so to speak, and began to bring buses from first Los Angeles, other parts in the state. And I did that from 2006-07 until 2010-11. And then I said, this is great. I could do this forever, but there's more work to be done and others could do what I'm doing. By then, the sheriff got a hold of me at a chance meeting. He had just been elected as our sheriff. And he said, come and see me. And so we did. We talked. And he said, come alongside me and let's look at what the jail needs. And then Jim Sally hopped in, because they're all connected at the hip, and said, let's look at doing something at juvenile hall. Long story short, a member from the sheriff's staff, Michelle Cole, who was lieutenant then, and Gary Drelleman, who was the deputy officer at juvenile hall, we made a road trip to Fresno. And we found out about a nonprofit who was working on the campus at the juvenile hall there. On the way home, we stopped at In-N-Out Burger, and we named Restorative Partners. That was the beginning. Over a hamburger, coming back with this vision that a nonprofit and law enforcement could work together to bring our mission. So that was the birth of what took place in terms of Restorative Partners in 2011.
And maybe it was a fast food table, but it was brought together over the kitchen table, right?
Exactly. All good things happen around the table, around food, right?
Right. If you want to solve a problem, bring some people together, break some bread, and things can be solved.
Absolutely. Top thing. Yeah. Everybody comes together around food.
Well, and thinking about that, so Restorative Partners, kind of I looking into and understanding a little bit about the organization, does deal with this idea of restorative justice.
Yeah.
It's a phrase that's becoming more common in our policy discussions.
Yes.
Can you give us a quick primer on the philosophy of what restorative justice means?
Sure, I'll try to do that. Well, again, restorative justice really started with Indigenous people. New Zealand is one of the birthplaces. Australia, other places in the world have done this. It became popular here in the United States with Howard Zier, who's kind of considered the restorative godfather, restorative justice godfather in the West. And it emerged in the 1970s as an effort to kind of correct some of the weaknesses that we found in the Western legal system, while also incorporating our strengths. It's always a both and. It's never one or the other. And so the special concern that he found was often law enforcement or the judicial process, the legal justice system, is focused on what do we do with the offender, and not enough attention to what are the needs of the victims. You know, what do they need to heal and move through this process? And so we also recognize that punishment in itself is usually not too effective. And so there has to be other elements of this to help both offenders who have caused harm and victims who've been harmed to repair and move forward with their lives as best as possible. So rather than obsessing with just what do we do with the offenders, RJ, Restorative Justice, works on repairing the harm of crime, engaging individuals that are both the victims and members of the community who've been most impacted by it. So that's the theory, that's the philosophy. It is not soft on crime. My experience with this is a deep dive into the wound that is often just soothing with, that needs to be cleaned out, that needs to be anointed, that needs to be closed and brought some closure to. And restorative justice work gets at that sore.
Well, so that, I mean, that is one of those pieces that is, you just brought up, right? Is this
Right.
theory that it's soft on crime.
Yep.
But so can you talk a little bit about like, well, how is it not soft on crime? How we're not, you know, we're not punishing.
Yes. Well, let me give you some examples of the work that we do. If you go to our website on the page that talks about what is restorative justice, you'll see a listing of a lot of programming that we do. But I'm going to give you 2 case scenarios, okay, that might help put some meat on the bone, so to speak. So we do an education program at the jail that is one of our hallmark programs. It's called Restorative Justice, Radical Healing and Accountability. And so it's a 12-session course. We usually do over about 3 months and a couple hours for each session. It's facilitated by one of our staff, sometimes 2, and they'll get through different topics about, you know, what was the story behind the story. It was my suspicion when I went into custody to first work that over 90% people before they became offenders were victims. We have to look at the trauma of one's life. We have to look at what has been unattended to when someone hurts someone else. Usually it's because they've been hurt first, and not everybody can recoup from those hurts, okay? A lot of things going on case by case with someone's situation. So we have this class. We have about 12 people in it. It's clear from the beginning that there are 2 people in the group that are really angry with each other. And I would say as much to say that there was just hate between them. And so we had to learn how to facilitate a class that felt safe enough to share at a depth level, to get at the hurt, to get at what the harm was done, and to become aware about the ripple effect of their harm. So we lead them through a variety of exercises. Towards the middle to the end of this particular group, these 2 men began to make their way towards each other through reconciliation, through understanding their own pain and sharing it openly. And these 2 people became friends. Now, these weren't just any 2 people. What we learned was we were working with a father and a son, both incarcerated for different crimes in the same class. And that got revealed slowly. But we saw this, and you can imagine what they were holding, the baggage and the blame and the injury and the harm. And by the end, they were literally in each other's arms, crying and forgiving and moving forward. So that happened in a jail setting, okay? That was powerful for me and for my staff.
And one would believe that had we just followed our normal situation of sticking them in the jail cell, letting them serve their time, come out of that, nothing would have changed in their lives and may have been worse.
There might have been blood on the ground, okay? Literally, okay? Through fist fight or whatever they do to settle their arguments, okay? So that's important because it has a lasting effect. This is family. where do we go from here once we're out? Okay. The other case scenario I want to share with you is about a man who'd been in and out of custody several times, most of his life. And he got into a squall with a coworker. Now he'd been out of custody maybe 5, 6 years, and he got into this altercation. And he was a friend of one of the custody officers at probation. And that particular person brought him to my attention. I said I'd be glad to sit down with him and talk with him. So we met with him. We assessed what his needs were. And we talked about what was his judicial process. And he was definitely afraid he might be going back to prison because of this altercation. His victim was already involved with the judicial system and the witness protection department. We assessed that this man, in and out of prison and really starting back in juvenile hall and all the way through, he had never been treated, one, for his trauma in his own life. He had a horrible upbringing. And secondly, for his anger, which was out of control. When this man got angry, he just sort of went blank rage. It went from 0 to 100 in a moment, okay? Clearly, this man needed to do some work. And so we said, come into treatment with us, which we do provide, anger management treatment. Get a mentor. That's another program we provide. Someone that's a good person in our community that can help network them in relationships that are different from the ones that perhaps they have been around for years. And we'll walk beside you through the court proceedings. Long story short, we've been working with him since last, I think, April. He's had a mentor to guide him in the experience of getting rewired out in the community. We've gone to the court proceedings with him, and he did not go back to prison because in working with the public defender and the DA and learning what this man was progressing through, the victim saw it too and said, I don't want to see him go back to prison. So he dropped that part, which then gave the courts the ability to navigate him in probation as long as he completed the work he was doing through Restorative Partners. Now that changed the trajectory of his life. Going to prison, he had only been married a year. That would have put that at risk. He would have lost his job. He was in school, and that would have been aborted for a while. All of this would have been put on ice, and he would never learn how to live in our community without such rage. Restorative justice does that kind of work. And we were also prepared to bring him into a conference if that step was desired. So we see proof in the pudding, okay?
Yeah, and it really does go to the point that of the hard work that's happening as part of what you're doing. Interesting to see that the victims involved in this, which I would assume is a big deal because, you know, they're getting some of their restitution out of this, right?
Yes, yes. I think it's so important that the victims have a voice to say, you know, what the courts say in terms of punishment may not satisfy the victim at all. What satisfies them was something that is really personally meaningful to them, that helps them move through their loss or anger or whatever. So much that the judicial system has to follow the codes. And if you do this crime, you get this time and blah, blah, blah. And that may or may not satisfy a victim at all. They want to be involved. And it's surprising sometimes what they come up with. They say, you know, this would be meaningful to me if he could do this or she could do this in order to make restitution. Not just an exchange of money, but something where this person really feels what it meant to me when they harmed me. That gets at the change.
And creates a society change
Yeah,
as
it has a
opposed.
ripple effect.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
And I love to witness this. This is just a yummy process of witnessing transformation.
It's so interesting to hear, and again, getting to know this personally, it's been really a enlightening understanding of how we can be better as a society in trying to find justice
Oh,
for everybody.
yes. We're in such need of that.
Yeah. Well, so you've mentioned, obviously, some of that we've talked a little, you've said some things about how some of the challenges that face incarcerated people in some of these stories, as well as victims. Looking at kind of restorative partners into the future here, are there, solutions coming to our community maybe in the near future that we could talk about?
First of all, I think we have to wrap our heads around that incarceration isn't an answer to addiction. Okay. Now, people, in order to maintain their addiction, often do things that are behavior that need to be managed. Okay. But let's get to the source of the issue. So, if addiction is going on, I see addiction as a way to get distance from my life's pain and things that have not been addressed. Once we remove that element and we sort of scrape off all of the things that kept a person numb and distant from really dealing with their real self, we can begin to look at the trauma. We can look at what the healing program needs to be. We offer a lot of treatment in Restorative Partners. So we began our work in custody, and we were let out through mentorship, a companion program to help navigate reentry. And then we got led into sober living because housing is so unaffordable in our area. Transitional housing was really important. It often serves like a shelter for people who would otherwise be homeless. And then we got into treatment, drug and alcohol, substance abuse treatment, and into now most recently, because of especially COVID, about 2 months ago, we started doing domestic violence treatment. Much needed response to what's going on in our COVID environment here locally and across the country. And we upped our drug and alcohol treatment. The opioid crisis is pandemic. Okay. Look at the numbers. If you've seen some of the Trib or the Paso news, you'll see the numbers have really climbed over this past year. We were about 40 some, now we're 57, may go to 76 when they settle some of these cases. And everyone's concerned about that. Well, we are too. And so we've upped our ante with substance treatment. Now we're doing domestic violence treatment. We're doing anger management. We do cognitive behavioral therapy with probation. So we're working with state parolees. We're working with probation. We're working with self-pays. We're in partnership with drug and alcohol, Slow Hub, a number of entities in order to address these local problems that we all are concerned about. So during this COVID time, that has been a real response. And we continue to look at opportunities within. I'm going to speak about two things that I think are really important. One, out of the summer protests, a lot of us were very concerned about addressing issues regarding diversity, inclusion, and equity. And so two groups have been formed, at least two. Others are also in play. One is the Sheriff's Unity Committee, of which I'm a member of, that Sheriff Parkinson initiated with his staff. And another one is initiated by Katie Granger, a local wonderful woman. And hers is the Public Safety Task Force. Serving on both of those committees, we are looking at the issues that rose during the protests that will involve the criminal justice system, okay? We're having conversations both with the DA, with the judges, public defenders, to talk about how restorative justice conferencing might be an appropriate tool, case by case, to help solve some of these situations, including some of the misdemeanor protests, okay? So we are really engaged in those conversations right now, and there's a wonderful openness for restorative justice practices to be a part of the judicial process.
Yeah, it's truly, again, it's so amazing to see some of this ripple effect and how it will have an impact overall throughout our society. And again, increased safety from a maybe looking outside the bubble of normal choices we probably make in trying to determine justice. And I can't believe it. We're already a half hour in this. And
wow.
This conversation, I feel like we could do this for 2 hours and have amazing conversations. And I think you're having them anyway. But if someone wanted to learn more about Restorative Partners or get involved with you, where should they start?
Okay, first of all, our website, restorativepartners.org, and look at what is restorative justice under the drop menu. Under the very first one, I think it's partners. And look at our Facebook. This is being, what we're doing right now is linked to our own Facebook. So it's live through that, our conversation. We have our upcoming end of January, starting on the 26th, our community education workshop. That's another shift during COVID. We've moved all of our training education to a remote platform. We're now zooming into our recovery homes for their treatment and one-on-one counseling. We also have a therapy program, certified therapists that are working remotely with our clients. But all of that can be spoken for on our website and updates on our Facebook. So the training for new volunteers is the end of January, the last week of January. We have a pretty intensive 9-hour training for anybody who wants to work with us in a volunteer capacity or learn more about what restorative justice is. We do a full initial orientation into some of the topics I discussed with you: addiction, trauma-informed lens, restorative justice. All of that is a part of our training. So I would love to see your people who are listening here, at least to come and learn what this is all about, and to find answers to their questions and to get engaged. I also, of course, we always need donations. So on our website, there's probably 3 or 4 places on the desktop there that you can go, ooh, donate, donate. Be a monthly giver. That is so helpful to our work, because having a regular cash flow during this time is so critical. When we have our expenses are up 30% because of COVID. So we can use all the help and support we can get.
Well, we at the Chamber, we're so appreciative of all the work you're doing for our community. It's why I wanted to kick off the year on such a high note and talking with you on what we can do to be better. And so thank you so much for being here. And I always conclude with one question. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Well, maybe some wouldn't look forward to this, but in about an hour, I'm going to get my vaccination. And I am thrilled. Most of our staff, because we're essential workers, will complete that by this week. And that just only frees us up to do more of our missions. So other than that, I'm going to take a long walk on the beach, which I usually do every weekend, and just take in the beauty that we are so blessed with here on the Central Coast. You know, we just got so much at our fingertips that's free for the taking and savoring. So that's what I look forward to.
Well, congratulations. I'm glad you're getting on the vaccine. I hope I know we're working with Dr. Bornstein on the rollout of this. So hopefully the rest will get this soon so we can get COVID behind us.
Yes.
For so many reasons.
Yes.
But I really appreciate the joy that you're bringing to this, our conversation today. And hopefully all of you out there got a chance to experience that too. We thank all of you for eating lunch with us. We hope to see you next week, same time, same place, when we talk with the Executive Director of Transitions Mental Health Association, Jill Bolster-White. If there's someone you'd like us to invite to a lunch, email us your idea at slowchamber@slowchamber.org. We wish you all a wonderful weekend. Please try to stay safe and healthy out there. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one, everyone.